time for my Horizon Forbidden West review. Quite obviously, it's taken me a long time to play this game. It's basically been a game that I've put on the back burner for many months while I've been playing other games, as has been widely talked about. You know, it was released at a terrible time. Kind of did the game no favours, released just a week before Elden Ring, and also in the same month as Lost Ark. A game I'd been waiting for personally for almost 5 years. So sadly, Forbidden West ended up going to the back of the pile. The result was that it was consistently put on the back of the pile for me, and I played it slowly over a long period of time, which is not the normal way I consume games. I normally like to absolutely no-life them for about a month and then do a review on it. But yeah, this game has taken me almost a year to finish. I've been playing it on and off in that time, but I guess that's a positive for the game as well. I kept coming back to it, I kept wanting to see where the story went, and overall I enjoyed the experience. Now ultimately, Forbidden West is a really good cinematic experience. It wins you over with its rumination on the human condition, with really humanity's will to come together and form communities with unique traditions, no matter how weird and wonderful they may be. And it's on those points that Forbidden West really hits the mark. However, it does have a variety of smaller issues that do hold the game back. The thing is, a lot of these issues are quite easily fixable if Guerrilla Games were just a touch braver on the writing and on the plot. Bland characters, especially Aloy, a very loose combat system, but also the kind of overall story just being a bit too meandering, and maybe just having one too many straight up plot twists or lies, as it were, in this game from the previous game that are just hard to keep track of at times. But where it shines is in the fantastic world building, the brilliant little communities that you meet along the way. I mean, the ways you kind of reboot certain landmarks across America, it's genuinely breathtaking. Visually, the game is astonishing. Normally, I get kind of visual fatigue when I play a lot of these games. You know, it wows you at first, and then that feeling kind of wears off over time. Forbidden West is not like that whatsoever. Later on in the game, you do kind of get a kind of meeting point as such, and you will constantly exit that meeting point and look out on this vast landscape, and every single time, you will just stand there and be like, wow, like, this is crazy. But yeah, the communities you meet, the traditions they each have, the various landmarks across America that you kind of reboot and reinvigorate as you make your journey west, all of that stuff is fantastic. It's lush, it's vivid, it's vibrant. Everything about it is incredible. The main story for me just didn't quite hit the mark. I feel it really pulls a lot from the previous game, which is fine. But the issue is, with the previous game being 5 years ago, and some of these plot twists tied specifically to the story in the previous game, it is really hard to keep track of kind of the intricacies of the story. Now for me, if you're going to have a plot twist, or you're going to, let's say, have a bit of disinformation in the first game and kind of reveal that as some kind of big twist in the new game, you need to kind of, you know, build that up. You need to telegraph that to the player. And often there'd be certain like twists in this game where I didn't even know it was a plot twist till I watched a story recap after I'd finished the game. And I think that's a valid criticism of the story. I think sometimes you don't really know what's going on in the main story until you really have to sit down and properly think about it. The storytelling, as in the main story, could be better, but I love the little bits of story. I love the side stories. They're brilliantly written. The characters are fantastic. Not quite Ghost of Tsushima levels in terms of side quests and these little stories you hear from the people living and breathing in this world, but still, they're at a very good level. So on the combat as well, you know, the big, larger fights are fantastic. When you meet a singular large enemy, I mean, it is epic. It's genuinely just awesome. Tearing off a laser cannon off a giant woolly mammoth, a robotic giant woolly mammoth, I may add. You know, lugging it up and then shooting it back at it, watching it explode, seeing the people on the back of the woolly mammoth just kind of go flailing everywhere. It's like gaming on a grand scale, and they've nailed that part of it. Where the combat doesn't quite work is against multiple smaller enemies, where the camera just can't keep up with the action. And honestly, for me, the combat at those moments felt very clumsy. It felt a bit lacking in precision, and often you just end up getting knocked down to the ground and being on the floor for a bit, and just end up sighing because you can't see the attacks coming. And I really do wish that aspect of the combat was tightened a bit and made to feel just a bit more in your control. I did feel sometimes you were just kind of getting pushed, you know, like that Jim Carrey video from the SNL where they're like between people and just getting pushed around everywhere. That's kind of what I felt like the combat was like in Forbidden West at times. A slight change to the scoring on the channel. I'm no longer going to be giving scores or numbers. I'm just going to be giving a more general feel of the game. So my ratings will go from poor to okay to good, very good, superb, and masterpiece. And really, I think, you know, Forbidden West is a good game that has very good moments. And that's where I think Forbidden West is as a game. I'm going to delve deeper into the issues I have with the game in terms of Aloy, the story, the combat. It's a good game. Pick it up if you can get it on a discount, or pick it up when the DLC comes out and get immersed in the world, because the world is the real superstar of this game. And also, Guerrilla, if by some miracle you're watching, be braver with Aloy. Quick conclusion at the beginning, and let's get into my main thoughts and some more details on where I think they could really do with improving and taking more risks on Forbidden West. So let's get lost in the Forbidden West.
Leading the peacekeeping effort with these brave men and women, these marshals of the new Southwest, has strengthened my conviction that when we are united, we can overcome any threat. Join me. Join us in that conviction as we strive for a nation and a world without want or war.
Okay, so Forbidden West is set about 6 months after the first game, and the game follows Aloy as she basically embarks on a journey to save the world from a mysterious blight and kind of Hades vanishing and disappearing off into the west. Now, though the world building and the graphics are insane, quite simply, there are, for me, issues with the way the story is presented, but also the direction the story is going in. Now, the way it's presented is, you know, I think most people would agree, the way it's presented is a little bit messy, it can be a bit convoluted, and also it's just downright confusing at times. The direction it's going is more a personal choice. I'm more intrigued by the robotic dinosaur than I'm about some sci-fi space humans, but, you know, people who love sci-fi will probably love the direction it's going in. Didn't quite hit home with me, but it's passable, but it could have been a lot better. So going back into the way the story was presented, now for me, I didn't like the way they did plot twists, and I use the term, plot twists loosely. What it turns out in Forbidden West is big parts of the story end up just being lies from the previous game. They end up just being thrown into Forbidden West with very little notice to the player. A lot of the big reveals kind of land a bit flat, and ultimately what it does reveal ends up not really being that amazing. So really the plot points just feel a bit confusing, especially the way they're presented in the larger narrative. What that results in really is with me really not being quite fully engaged with that story. A lot of these twists feeling quite forced, rather than maybe the way the director saw it, which is like maybe some M. Night Shyamalan type of twist, which is not the way it comes across at all. I'm going to touch on this later, but really braver choices in the writing room, maybe a slightly darker tone or a shift of tone at certain points would have been good. Now for this whole game, honestly, in my head I was just thinking it would be really good if there was like a pivotal moment in this game. It would be really good if there was some kind of character defining moment for Aloy. And that does, I'm not going to spoil it here, but that does basically happen towards the end of this game. But Aloy's reaction is one of, oh no. Okay, on to the next point. And honestly, that it just was a bit jarring. It was like, whoa, you're just seeing this like massive thing happen in your life. And it's just like, oh, well, better get on with my mission. And I don't know, that point, that moment should have been a pivotal moment in Aloy's character arc. It should have been a pivotal moment in the tone of the game, with a slight shifting to just a braver, maybe slightly darker tone. Onto characters, there's a lot of good characters in the game. I especially love the little merry band of people she picks up along the way. Almost all of them are really fun to be around and really good characters. There's one I didn't particularly like, but again, it's personal choice. But the problem is, these characters are really interesting and everything. Aloy is just super bland and generic. Ironically, Aloy just seems like an AI-generated, shareholder approved main character. She's so safe and just so... I just don't warm to her. She's like the type of person you'd invite her to a house party, right? And she'd turn up and she'd be like, oh, the music's too loud or something. Can you turn it down, please? You know, she just seems like that type of person. It's completely subjective. I'm sure a lot of people will love Aloy. Oh man, but she is a slight negative for me in this game. I would love them to really push the boat out on Aloy and push her character development, her emotional kind of outpouring. It just needs to be better. It needs to be more. It needs to connect with me more. She just doesn't connect with me. I had the same problem in the first game. I'll be honest. I have the same problem here. For me, she's a bit too bland. And moving on to kind of the flow of the game, look, the exploration is just outstanding. I loved it. The world, the meeting people, the picking up side missions here and there, just being able to look and being able to go anywhere you look, it's incredible. Honestly, it's amazing. The map is, I felt like some people didn't want to say this, but I'm just going to say it. The map is too big. There's just too much on there. So the world is incredible and the exploration is amazing, but the combat just felt clumsy to me a lot of the time. I said, you know, in the bigger moments, the combat is excellent. But in the smaller moments, it feels clunky, it feels clumsy. The camera doesn't quite keep up with the movements. The lack of any lock-on does make melee feel, honestly, just like waving your hand in the dark sometimes. I don't know. The nerf to tripwires, I think, was a negative move because I really like to set up my hunt in Horizon, the first game. And I just felt like the tripwires are so finicky now. They're just so, they're just, the way you got to place them and the way they snap all the time. It really took a lot away from the tripwires and setting up your hunt, which I love doing. Feels a bit more just kind of throw your ammo at the enemy and, you know, work out what their weaknesses are by scanning them and just throw your ammo at the enemy. It does feel like a very AAA Monster Hunter at times, and that's when it's working and it feels, you know, great when it works. But when it doesn't work, it does feel messy. And, you know, I often left a lot of encounters just being like, that was okay. That was okay. Bigger encounters against big enemies like mini bosses or main bosses, I often felt leaving, wow, that was incredible. But against a pack of enemies, it was just like, I don't know. Didn't sit right with me. It didn't feel well put together. But at its core, the combat system is really well thought out, and I think with a bit of tweaking, it could be sensational. From plotting and planning which part of the monster to tear off to use against it, to deciding which canister to hit to set off an explosion that then affects enemies around it, to tearing off key components that take away certain attacks, and then to, of course, killing the enemies to build your own weapons. All of that is fantastic. Again, borrowing a lot from Monster Hunter, but adding a little bit of its own little spice to it, and it's really, really good when it works. Now, obviously, visually, you know, I'm not going to bore you with stuff that's already been said a million times. This review is coming out almost 10 months after the game was released. It's still, to this day, astounding. There are many times where you will just stop and look. And normally, in open world games, this is the biggest compliment I can probably give the open world in Forbidden West. In open world games, I'm the first guy to get to a fast travel point and fast travel everywhere. In Forbidden West, I basically never fast traveled anywhere. I got on a mount or I just walked and I just took the world in. That is how incredible the world is in Forbidden West. And this is from someone who would look for the first waypoint and start crafting whatever fast travel packs instantly. This channel is called Lost in the World. It's for games like this. You will get lost in this world. It is outstanding. The character models and the cutscenes, I mean, if I hadn't played Callisto Protocol before this, I would be telling you Forbidden West has the most incredible cutscenes I've ever seen. They are sensational. They are top of their class. Well, other than Callisto Protocol. But yes, the cutscenes are brilliant. The voice acting is fantastic. There's some characters that are genuinely lovable. Not even like your main kind of gang you develop, but just the normal guys you just talk to on little missions or in certain areas. It's all fantastic. It's all top quality. And really, what that leads to is a new level of immersion, and I think that's where Forbidden West wins so many people over. I also feel, you know, why it can be a bit divisive. I think sometimes the incredible immersion, the incredible quality on show, it can kind of cloud people's judgment when it comes to some key weaknesses the game has.
You wanted your cannon, and that thing has them. This won't be easy to take down, especially with this.
I'll handle the big guy. You focus on the others.
I'll follow you in.
I gotta find something to do to keep
Maybe
myself...
I should see if there's anything I can use to take that thing down.
If you're looking for a visually stunning next-gen game, then Forbidden West is definitely worth checking out. It's got breathtaking visuals, immersive gameplay features. It'll be hard not to get lost in this incredible post-apocalyptic world. It may have a couple of warts here and there, but I think a lot of people will be willing to overlook it, considering just what a feast for the senses it is. It does feel like sometimes that they tried to do too much in this game, and as a result they lost focus on some key elements and some core elements to really elevating Forbidden West into a truly superb game. But by the end, as you're grabbed by your flying mount and you make your journey to the final mission, you survey the world below you and you can't help but just shake your head and be in awe of the world you've just experienced for the last 30 hours. It's honestly technically an incredible achievement, a breathtaking world brought to life in the most incredible detail. It's so lush and full of life, from the plants to the robotic animals you meet, to the humans and the societies and communities they've built. While you're flying on this mountain at the end, you think of all the tribes you've met, you think about the cities that you've rebuilt, the lights that you've turned on in absolutely desolated areas, and you genuinely, you wonder to yourself, can Guerrilla Games truly hit the nail on the head with the next installment? Can they go from being a good game to something truly special? We'll have to wait and see. That's my take on Forbidden West. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like, subscribe, blah, blah, blah. So just to let you know, in the run-up to the Dead Space remake release on the 27th of January, I will be reviewing and streaming a bunch of indie games that I basically missed over 2022 that are in the Game of the Year discussion. So I'm going to be doing Game of the Year reviews. Currently, I'm going to be streaming and reviewing Neon White on Twitch, and then I'm going to be playing Immortality, followed by Prodeus, which is a first-person shooter, then Signalis, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and then, if I've got time, finally with Vampire Survivors. So that's what I'm going to be aiming for in the run-up to the 27th. Plenty of gaming time incoming, and yeah, we will see you very soon. Thanks for watching. About something in the comments. Whatever. What do you think of Forbidden West? Do you think it got worse? Do you think it's better than the first game? Worse than the first game? Do you like Aloy? In fact, you know what? That's what I'm going to ask you. Do you like Aloy? Does anybody else think Aloy's boring, or is it just me? Anyway, take care, peace out, and look after yourselves.